integrating audio into video games is not particularly straightforward. Unlike simple stereo audio that we listen to on a daily basis from, for example, radio, TV, music files, and so on, the audio in video games has many special and dynamic playback or behavioral properties. That is, the sounds can be directional in 3D space with some special location. They can come from a moving object moving on screen. They can occur at random. They can be the result of user interactions, often with the game, and the seemingly physical properties that objects in video games possess. So, within a video game, in order to get the audio to behave in these complex ways, code must be written, which will do the job of getting the audio to play appropriately. The audio and music content itself may ultimately be the most important factor, but the audio content creators are often left in the position of sort of throwing their work over the wall to the game developers, hoping that the final implementation will proceed and be as effective as they imagined when they were creating the audio. So audio middleware has been developed to tackle this very issue by bringing the creation of complex audio behaviors into a more familiar system that music composers and sound designers can more easily understand and relate to, and where they can develop and test their content in a game-like situation. This video looks at one particular example of audio middleware called FMOD. FMOD enables a simpler, more creative integration of sound and music into video game development. An FMOD project generates or contains a set of FMOD events. An FMOD event contains sound and behaviors. The sounds can be audio effects or music, and the behaviors include things like random playback, conditional transitions according to some logic and parameter settings, all the complex audio behaviors that you get in a game. For the developer, an FMOD project can be integrated into a game. Audio events are referenced more simply and directly from the code, and FMOD provides the behavioral instructions for the audio. For the musician or sound designer, he or she can now incorporate game-like behaviors with a sound creation using the sort of audio graphic tools that are so familiar from using standard DAWs like Pro Tools, Logic, Ableton, Sonar, and so on. However, there is more here than meets the eye. To understand what's going on, we'll create a new event in FMOD and build it up from scratch. So what you're hearing here is a simple loop or an old groove, and but you'll notice that there is a button which is changing the intensity or the mix of the tracks. Let's build this up from scratch. So let's delete the old one. This is our standard FMOD work screen. This is the edit area. Over here on the left is the list of the events. In the edit area we mix the tracks. The overview has some information about each track, and at the bottom of the page is our deck. We'll right click in the events column, select a new event, and I'll be honest and label this old groove, and that automatically gives us one audio track. Okay, if we right click in the header area and choose add audio track, I'm going to create 4 separate audio tracks. Command 3 brings up the audio bin, and I have previously dragged into the audio bin 4 WAV files that I made in Logic. They're all the same length. They can be auditioned when they're in the audio bin. So there's a sort of percussion track, and here is an electric piano thing. Here's the bass, and then the final one is a sort of brass and guitar track. All of these loops are exactly the same length, of course, same tempo. Okay, so now we simply drag these files from the audio bin onto appropriate tracks in the edit window. I've got percussion on track 1, EP on track 2, clav thing on track 3, and then the brass and guitar on track 4. All of the events can be dragged to the front of the track, and now if we hit play, as you can see, we've pretty much got a standard door. Okay, of course there's no loop. You can see the playhead just moving on past the end of the audio events. So now what we're going to do is right click in one of the events and select a new loop region. A loop region is made exactly the length of the audio file that is filling. So now that's looping nice and smoothly. Okay, at this stage I should be tidy and name my tracks. So I'm just going to double click on the track header and put in the names of the tracks. Percussion, EP, bass, and the last one is like guitar and brass. Okay, but we don't have any parameters here, so I'm clicking on the tab next to the timeline and selecting Add Parameter. When the dialog box comes up, I'm going to name my parameter and I'll call it Intensity. It'll have a minimum value and a maximum value. I'll leave these set at 0 and 1. They can be set to anything, and this will probably depend on the game developer, but for the moment we'll leave them at 0 and 1. This automatically places a little button at the top of the edit window labeled Intensity, and when we turn this you can see the playhead moving up and down the intensity parameter. Okay, what I'm going to do in the intensity window is add automation by right-clicking on the volume knob for each track, which will open up an automation lane for volume on that track. This is very similar to what you would do in a normal DAW. So now we have automation lanes. On the first track, the percussion, I want the level to stay the same for all levels of intensity. But for the EP, I'm going to bring the level down at the start and then create a breakpoint in the automation lane just by clicking on it. Then a second one, and I'll drag that one up to about unity gain, so that as intensity reaches that point, that track will be brought up in volume. Do the same on the bass track, but this time I'll have him come in a little bit later. In other words, when intensity is higher. And exactly the same idea for the final track. Pull that down, create a breakpoint by clicking, and then drag that up. Okay, now so we can see this better, I'm just going to reduce the sizes of these tracks, and then we can see all of them at the same time. So unlike consumer DAWs, FMOD doesn't have a handy adjustment for all the track heights, so you have to do each one. But there you go. Okay, now as I move the intensity knob, you can see the playhead moving across these different levels of volume for each of the tracks. So now I'm playing it, and you hear as we get to intensity of about 0.3 or 0.4, the electric piano track is now up to maximum volume. Keep going, and the bass track comes in. And then finally, guitar and brass. Okay, so that's how you put together a very simple mix of 4 tracks and change their relative mix with one simple parameter control. This would be saved as an FMOD project, and that particular event would be referenced in the game as Old Groove. And when Old Groove starts to play, look for a parameter value, and depending on the parameter value, which might be a certain level of action in the game, the mix will change accordingly.